Hey folks, it's Mangrel. Welcome back to the channel. I'm doing a brand new freestyle quad build, sub 250 grams as always. And this time around, I am using a frame that I hadn't heard of until very recently. This is the Ikon 3 from AvionRC, and it's a frame that is supposed to fly very, very good, weigh very little, and also support, as you can see, the DJI O4 air unit and gigantic image sensor natively. The frame kit comes nicely packaged in a series of individual bags, just like this. We have a bag that has some screws along with the arm protectors. This to me looks like motor screws and arm protector screws. The next bag has our O4 Air Unit Pro camera holder along with the antenna holder and a nice orange TPU. We've got the top deck with already applied battery pad, AvionRC battery strap, bunch of screws and standoffs. We've got 4 arms, looks like symmetrical arms, which is great. I don't see any extra arms. That's a little bit disappointing. And then finally we have the lower deck. It looks like the lower deck does come in 3 or 4 different pieces, very similar to our Quadmilla split design. I've got the frame all assembled. It did assemble pretty intuitively. There is no manual included in the package. So I went over to the AvionRC website. I looked at pictures of this already assembled and pretty much just followed suit. So if we look at this, the arms do sandwich between the lower deck and these little sandwich plates. And then you use the larger of the screws over here, smaller screws everywhere else. So again, fairly intuitive once you start going, but would have been nice to have a manual. And when I feel this thing weighs nothing. It's so light. I did come across one disappointing quality issue, and that has to do with the quality of these larger screws. So if I show you, when I start to twist this, you see how loose fitting these screws are. My driver is pretty high quality, but when I try to tighten these, it's very loose. So I do recommend that even before you build this, do swap out these screws with higher quality screws. It'll make your life a lot easier down the road. Doing a weight check of the frame by itself with TPU weighs 46 grams. So yep, definitely very light. The arms are about 3.5 millimeter thick. The upper deck is 1.5. The back lower deck is 1.5. And the front lower deck is about 2. Now comparing the frame thickness, let's look at my Siren F3 from Quadmilla. So the arm on this one is 3.1 millimeters in thickness. The top deck is about 2 millimeters and the lower deck is also about 2 millimeters as well. And the quad is all assembled. I did use the T-Motor F1404 3800 kV motors. I did use my Happymodel Super F405 all-in-one flight controller. This does have the Express ELRS built in. And then I did use all the 3D prints I had already from my Quadmilla Siren F3. So with the TPU, you are able to stretch it and get it to fit onto this frame. So that was quite good. Now working on this frame was a little bit delicate and did take some thought to assemble. And the challenges started from the selection of this all-in-one flight controller. So this frame is actually designed to mount the flight controller at an angle using these 4 25 millimeter spacing holes. But if I was to do that, I would not have access to the USB. This particular flight controller is designed to mount in a typical kind of, I guess, square fashion like this. So what I had to do was use some 3D printed spacers to allow me to convert the 20 by 20 over to the 25 by 25. Now for the top deck, I've got the O4 Air Unit Pro mounted where it's suggested by AvionRC. There are these little spacers that give you enough clearance to mount your battery strap. And then I came up with an idea of trying to keep this air unit and camera all in one piece. So I don't remove the top screws here. That way it becomes more easy to remove and kind of manage. I do notice that the camera just has very limited kind of adjustability. So you can see there really isn't much that you could play with. I'll have to see on the computer how many degrees this is. But already this is going to be a challenge for some folks who want either less angle, that's the lowest it'll go, or maybe want more angle, that's the highest it'll go. So not ideal. And then for the antenna, I've got my smaller Flywoo antenna here. and I've used my custom-made 3D print for the Quadmilla frame, which does work on this as well. Unfortunately, the battery strap that comes with this frame is also too long. So you can see here using it on my 4S 650 milliamp battery pack, way too big for this pack. So we'll have to use an aftermarket strap. Here's the quad fully assembled with the battery pack and my luminaire strap that I use for all of the smaller builds. And it came up pretty nice, but you can see how tight the gap is between the flight controller and the O4 air unit. Just look at that gap between the capacitor. And this is where you can 3D print a capacitor mount that would go at the back over here. But generally, I don't like to use any wires between my power leads and the capacitor. They do say that reduces the efficiency of the capacitor. So again, this is the best I can come up with. Maybe I'll give it some more thought and see if there is a better way of doing it. But this, again, should work okay. Shouldn't cause me any challenges, but makes just maintainability and working on this a bit more painful than it has to be. I've gone ahead and done a custom PID tune using my go-to software, which is PID Toolbox. I will give you links in the video description to my PID tune along with my Betaflight configuration file. I am now also using some advanced Betaflight features such as thrust linearization and dynamic idle. Doing a weight check, the quad itself without the battery weighs 141 grams. Add in our GNB 4S 650 milliamp battery, we are looking at a ready to fly weight of 210 grams. That's pretty good. All the flight footage you're seeing is coming off of the DJI O4 Air Unit Pro onboard recording or coming off of the Goggles 3 Goggle View recording. I don't use any kind of video stabilization, so no hardware stabilization, no software stabilization. Pretty much whatever you're seeing is what the quad is doing. If the quad had any kind of shakes, wobbles, or weird flight characteristics, all of that would show up on the video footage you're seeing right now. Initial impression of the Ikon 3 is that it really does live up to the expectations and all the really positive feedback that other pilots have had. It flew beautifully. And I didn't realize how well it was flying until I started to do some back-to-back flights between the Ikon 3 and my go-to frame, which is my Quadmilla Siren F3 split. Only when doing that back-to-back flight test did I realize just how well the Ikon 3 was actually flying. Maybe it's just the lighter overall weight, or perhaps it's just the way that AvionRC has done their mass centralization on the Ikon 3. It just was so confidence inspiring. I found myself getting closer and closer to obstacles, being more and more comfortable with flying this frame. And this all happened very quickly on just a couple of battery packs. So first impressions were very, very positive. However, I did start to see a potential issue cropping up. And that issue has to do with some shakes and jello in the video footage when I was trying to push the quad more and more. And it seems to happen on full throttle punch outs where I would get this kind of shake and jello behavior. And unfortunately, it looks like this is a common complaint of the Ikon 3 and not just something that I've been experiencing myself. Looks like other pilots have been having this issue as well. Day 2 of flight testing really focused on trying to resolve the shakes and the jello from day 1. And my thinking is that the cause of the shakes is the single screw design of the TPU camera mount that AvionRC has included. So I went ahead and designed my own 3D print camera mount out of TPU, one that could hold the camera a lot more securely using 2 screws with a fixed angle of 26.5 degrees. And flying this new camera mount, definitely the jello and the shakes have gotten better, but they are still there. At certain punch out or certain full throttle scenarios, we are still seeing a momentary shake or jello in the video footage. So we're making progress, but not entirely resolved on day 2. I also went ahead and tried different camera settings just to give you an idea of the flight footage using those different settings. So right now you're looking at 16:9 ultra wide. And this actually looks really good. Yeah, we've got a bit of a fisheye experience, but I'm not seeing any props in view. And just a little tiny bit of the upper deck in the corners comes into view. This is pretty good for ultra wide. I also went ahead and I tried 4x3. Me personally, I never fly 4x3, but those of you that do, this is how 4x3 would look like. To me, looks great, but again, I don't fly 4x3. On day 3, we continue to mess around with the camera mount because at this point, I'm convinced, or at least I've got my heart set that the camera mount is the culprit here. So I found a custom designed 3D print camera mount that someone else had designed to apparently resolve the jello that they were experiencing. And this is where I had a little bit of a revelation. Because as I'm flying around with this person's custom 3D print camera mount, I'm noticing that I get the shakes and the jello around 60 to 70% throttle all the time. So what I'm thinking is that the frame is having some sort of weird resonance at that particular RPM that's showing up as jello in the video footage. So with this newly armed kind of knowledge, I'm going to start to look now at the motors and see if perhaps we have a bad motor or something else that's causing this resonance. In preparation for day 4 of flight testing, I've gone ahead and checked every single motor using the motor tab of Betaflight. So I spooled up each motor one by one to see if one particular motor has more shakes or vibration than the rest. And of course, I've done this without propellers on. And I did find that the front right motor, which is close to the camera, had a little bit more vibration than the rest. Not much more, but still noticeably more. So in this flight you're seeing right now, I did go ahead and swap out that particular motor, and I do notice less jello and less shakes. It's still there though. So the sense I'm getting is that there is some sort of weird resonance behavior with this frame and motor combination that I'm using that's causing this shake to appear at those full throttle punch outs. It's definitely a lot better in this flight, but because it's still there, I have to make sure that I call it out. After over 2 months with this frame, this has got to be the best flying frame I have personally ever built in the sub 250 gram 3-inch freestyle category. And that's saying a lot. I've tried many different frames in this kind of category, and this is the best flying frame I've experienced in the last, 5 or 6 years at this point. So it does pain me that I could not resolve that final issue. I could not resolve that jello in the flight footage no matter what I did. And I tried everything I could think of. I tried props, I tried motors, I tried 3D custom printed camera mounts. Whatever I did could not resolve the issue, which leads me to believe that we've got a bit of a frame design challenge where the resonance from the motor is coming right down into the camera. So definitely very unfortunate, just given how well this thing flies, that we've got that kind of shortcoming. Also, the maintainability is a challenge on this frame too. Given that we have the air unit at the top and the flight controller at the bottom, you can't just pop this off and work on it. You have to disconnect it and so forth. So just some considerations when you think about living with this on a daily basis. But it just flies so well. So I'm kind of tempted to overlook some of those weird things and continue to fly this as my daily flyer because, like I said, it flies so good. It kind of pains me that I couldn't make it perfect, but it's just such a good frame that I'm willing to overlook some of those shortcomings. So hopefully you liked this video. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment, and stay tuned for more videos.